The dark side of Japan. Japan is undoubtedly one of the most interesting and respected country worldwide. But beyond the exciting things that catch our eye, there's a side of Japan that people don't often talk about. In this video, we're going to explore the social and cultural challenges that many may not be aware of. We will uncover the hidden aspects and bring attention to the details that make Japan so unique and mysterious. It is a country full of interesting and contrasting aspects. While the vibrant lights of Tokyo's streets and the peacefulness of its gardens captivate our attention, there's a darker side that not many people are willing to explore. Even though Japan looks perfect, there's a hidden problem of loneliness that affects people deeply. This issue is not easy to see amid the busy and lively atmosphere of Japan. Despite its apparent perfection, Japan grapples with the issue of loneliness, which can deeply affect the most delicate souls. It's surprising because, in crowded places, some people still feel completely alone and left out from the rest of Japanese society. This contrast between the lively outside and the hidden loneliness inside shows that Japan is a complex place, with more to it than meets the eye. These individuals, known as hikikomori, choose to isolate themselves by staying locked in their rooms and disconnecting from the rest of society. They become silenced voices of fear and anxiety, blending into the crowds but remaining isolated from the world throughout their lives. Hikikomori is a growing disorder that has a very negative impact on Japanese society. The term hikikomori essentially means withdrawing or isolating oneself completely, and that's precisely what these individuals do. They completely cut themselves off from society, living with little or no contact with the outside world. In 1998, psychologist Tamaki Saito observed the behavior associated with this disorder, likening it to an endless adolescence, and coined the term hikikomori. The book, Hikikomori and Endless Adolescence by Saito, reveals the discussion about this in Japan, where some people withdraw from society. The author explores this issue in detail, showing that it has been around in Japan for a long time. In Chapter 10, the book discusses the sadness linked to the violence that often happens in families affected by hikikomori. Many cases of people isolating themselves socially also involve violent incidents within their families. Facing the challenge of hikikomori involves dealing with pressures from family, school, and society, along with various other factors. For those experiencing this problem, their room becomes their entire world. People suffering from hikikomori often spend all their time with video games or on the internet, and their friendships are mostly virtual, happening through social media or online games. Loneliness is a major issue for Japanese individuals dealing with this disorder. The impact can be so severe that a person loses the strength to perform even basic activities like washing dishes or going to the market alone. The suffering caused by hikikomori is a harsh reality, often going unnoticed and in silence. It's a serious problem that concerns both the local population and the government. Effectively addressing hikikomori and planning a future for Japanese youth who increasingly dedicate themselves to virtual worlds through games is a complex issue that can't be fully answered here. In Japan, there is an even greater concern with the extremely high number of suicide cases and mental health problems, particularly among young people. In 2020, approximately 21,800 suicide cases were reported in the country, averaging 60 cases per day. These alarming numbers have shown a significant decrease of around 40% over the past 2 decades, largely due to the efforts of non-governmental organizations like LiveLink, established in 2004. However, the decrease in suicide rates is still not enough, as the number of minors deciding to take their own lives continues to rise. The reasons behind this alarming trend are varied, but social pressure is identified as one of the main factors. Japanese society is known for its strong social pressure, which has been linked to high suicide rates in the country. In many Asian countries, including Japan, there's a strong focus on achieving success, and people feel a lot of pressure to meet social expectations and do well in many parts of life. This puts a big weight on individuals. The idea of gambare, which means to keep going with determination and hard work, is deeply rooted. Even though working hard and staying determined are good qualities, They can also make things super competitive and create a lot of stress that feels too heavy to handle. People feel social pressure in Japan, especially in school and work. Students have to compete a lot to get into good universities and find good jobs. The work culture expects long hours, and trying to be perfect while fearing failure can be really tough. This constant pressure makes many people feel hopeless and lonely. They might feel like they can't meet everyone's expectations, leading to feelings of not being good enough, being alone, and feeling helpless. Sadly, for some people, this pressure becomes too much, and they think ending their own lives is the only way to escape it. This pressure starts in school and continues throughout people's careers in Japan, making them face huge demands and stress, creating a difficult and upsetting environment. There's another issue people dealing with in Japan called karoshi, which means people are working so much that it can lead to death. This issue is more common than it might seem. The reason for this overworking culture is the strong competition to meet social standards mentioned before. Working hard has become a symbol of how Japanese people see their jobs, starting back in the 1920s when the country was growing quickly. This idea was passed on to later generations, who were told that being a loyal and dedicated worker was their goal. This way of thinking created a very competitive education system in Japan. Japanese society values people working hard, and this puts a lot of pressure on individuals. People often find themselves stuck in a situation with lots of expectations and responsibilities. The commitment to work is so strong that workers feel like they have to stay at work for extra hours without getting paid. This way of thinking about work can seriously hurt the physical and mental health of workers, causing lots of stress, tiredness, and even serious illnesses. Japan faces not only human problems, but also challenges from nature itself. Earthquakes shake the ground often, and tsunamis can be very destructive along the coast. Sometimes, dormant volcanoes wake up, causing chaos with clouds of ash. Japan deals with a constant struggle between calm times and possible destruction. Living in Japan can be risky because of its location, with tricky geography, and a lot of shaking from earthquakes. The Japanese are used to small tremors happening regularly, but they are ready to handle these situations, and it doesn't surprise them much. For people visiting for the first time, these natural events might be frightening. So, it's important to know about the small risks in the country and be a bit prepared for unexpected events and natural occurrences. The situation with earthquakes in Japan and nearby countries is more serious. Many researchers and scientists think there's a high chance of a big earthquake happening in the next 30 years. According to estimates from the University of Tokyo in 2016, there's a 98% chance of a significant earthquake occurring in that time. They call it the Great Kanto Earthquake, and it could destroy a large part of the country. The last big earthquake in this area was in 1923, and it caused the death of over 140,000 people. Although many Japanese might not know about it, it left a mark on the country's history, and experts are worried that it could happen again. People hope to avoid disasters, but also know there's a constant risk of them happening. Despite living on the edge of potential chaos, not everyone is worried. The Japanese government and other organizations are actively getting ready for possible disasters. They're putting in place plans and systems to respond effectively to things like extreme weather. One big part of their plan is to build strong structures that can withstand earthquakes and tsunamis. They've also set up barriers to protect against waves and have various measures to keep people safe. This shows how committed Japan is to lessening the impact of natural disasters. Taking a closer look at Japan's preparations for disasters reveals some interesting things about how resilient the nation is. It's not just about accepting that disasters can happen at any time, but also about being proactive and creative in dealing with them. Japan is always improving its strategies to handle the unpredictable forces of nature, showing its determination to stay safe in a challenging environment. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for upcoming videos.